pretty sure that if we ever got confirmation about there being genetically engineered and perfected humans living among us, they'll be found in either Seattle or Vancouver. This makes sense to me because both Dark Angel and Kyle XY take place in Seattle, but were mostly filmed in Vancouver. And perhaps they were both cancelled before their planned ending to cover something up? Or maybe not, since I recently talked about why Dark Angel was cancelled. But what about Kyle XY? Is there a conspiracy to uncover? Kyle XY was a sci-fi series about the teenager Kyle, who tries to figure out why he has no memories, or belly button.
No belly button.
And it took place in contemporary Seattle. Kyle wakes up in a forest, naked and confused, without a single memory.
My eyes weren't sure what they were seeing.
He ends up in trouble for running around naked without really understanding why. The social worker who's assigned his case is the mother of two teenagers, and she ends up taking pity on him and brings him home with her. It quickly becomes clear that Kyle isn't like others, and he has abilities that others don't, but he has to figure out how to act like a normal person.
I am leaking.
With help from his newfound family, he also tries to figure out who he is and where he comes from.
Mom, I'm telling you, Kyle is not human.
Oh, Kyle. Of course you're human.
See? Even he's not sure.
The show ended on a fairly big cliffhanger with several unresolved plot threads, which isn't a good look for any show. The reason for the cliffhanger was that a fourth season was in the plans, and apparently the cancellation wasn't announced until after they'd already filmed the season 3 finale.
I can't believe you're leaving. I'll see you again, though. It's not like forever, right?
I don't want it to be.
And it made a lot of sense for them to film the episode as if a fourth season was coming, since Kyle XY was one of the highest rated shows on ABC Family during its first 2 seasons. And yet the third season of the show took a serious hit in the ratings. But as it turns out, the decline had begun already in the later part of season 2. The sudden decline seems a bit strange, since the show appeared to have a fairly large fan base, and petitions were started to get it back on the air after its cancellation. It's not uncommon for petitions to be started even for shows that have no substantial fan base when measured in network numbers, so it's admittedly not the best anecdotal evidence, but I wanted to mention it since I have a theory regarding the decline in viewers. What if it wasn't actually the contents of the show that resulted in a loss of viewers, but the sheer length of it? The show was so popular that for season 2, ABC Family decided to deviate from the standard 10-episode season and instead gave it 23 episodes. This was more than double their norm, so is it unreasonable to think that maybe the loss of interest was more in the time investment rather than in the series itself?
The numbers represented time, which they never seem to have enough of.
We've all been there. We watch a show every week like clockwork and we're excited to see the next episode. But then the routine starts interfering with your life and you miss one episode and you decide to catch up on it later. Then you realize that it doesn't matter when you watch the show as long as you don't see spoilers beforehand. So you watch it when it's convenient for you. It's all fine and well, and as it should be. The only problem is the ratings. Many TV channels only monitor the ratings on the original airing. So if you watch a show regularly, but during the reruns, your viewing of it isn't factored in the monitoring, you don't count.
I'll be in the other room pretending to be dead.
The decline in viewers was the official reason given for the cancellation, and part of that might actually be ABC's own doing. A season twice as long as a regular one on the network might have lost the attention of some, but they also made a couple other questionable decisions.
This company cannot afford to have that subject loose in the outside world.
The first season was aired on both ABC Family and ABC, which is known as cross-promotion, but only part of season 2 was aired on both, and season 3 was aired strictly on ABC Family. The cross-promotion had been a very smart move and proved highly effective in drawing in viewers. So when they started airing season 3 during a different time slot than previous seasons, without the cross-promotion, they probably lost out on a fair amount of viewers. Kyle XY's plot wasn't completely exempt from criticism though, and I found one particular complaint in multiple places. I have no way of checking how commonly occurring it was during the show's airing though, or if it was even brought up to the TV studio. But the complaint came from people who had mistakenly interpreted ABC Family as a family-friendly channel, when in actuality its programming was aimed at teens and young adults. The word family in the name was supposed to indicate that it contained depictions of diverse families, a memo which apparently didn't reach everyone. So people would say rather harsh things about it and calling it inappropriate. which was extra funny in the cases where it came from parents being upset that the teenagers were watching teenagers behaving like teenagers. But apart from the angry parents and some sporadic negative comments, it seems like most of the people that cared enough to comment on it actually enjoyed the show. There was a 4th season planned, and the story for it seems to have been fairly extensively developed. The reason we know that is that they released a mini wrap-up along with Season 3, called Kyle XY Future Revealed. In it, the writers and actors explain roughly what would have happened in the planned episodes and how the series was supposed to end. It's all in all a fairly anticlimactic way of ending a series, but slightly better than just leaving us hanging. Their explanation leaves a lot to the imagination, and the story doesn't appear to have been 100% set in stone from the way they talk about it. That might have been a deliberate choice, so they wouldn't paint themselves into a corner in case they ever got the opportunity to realize it.
700 faces, one, and all of your ways and all your thunder got me in a haze running for cover. Where we gonna go from here?
The series has a lot of potential for a 4th season, but picking it up right where they ended it would feel a fair bit awkward. Many of the cast members were teenagers or in their early 20s and would obviously not look the same today. And I think people are pretty tired of 30-somethings playing teenagers. But I think it would be a good idea to move the story forward in time and keep the same cast. Not only to avoid the age shenanigans, but also because we can skip all of the love triangle nonsense. They got pretty into the love triangle in the wrap-up, and I think they seriously overestimated the interest people had in it. It was interesting to see Kyle explore his conflicting emotions for a bit as part of his development, because it seemed to be caused partially by him being a teenager and partly because of his common background with Jesse.
How was it possible to feel electricity for one person and butterflies for another?
So it was an okay way of alluding to his mysterious background and the connection he had to Jesse, but I would have absolutely hated to see it being a story propeller for Season 4. And if I were to wager a bet, I'd guess that the least liked character on the show would be Amanda. So focusing heavily on a love triangle involving her would probably not be a very good move. So the question is, should it get a new season? Or is the risk of reboot ruining it too big? Of course, technically one could be made, and it might end up really good too if they don't try to squeeze too many plot elements into it. Ideally, the reboot would be in the form of a superhero movie, and that way the 3 existing seasons could be used as Kyle's origin story.
Now I know what it feels like to be Lois Lane.
Lois who?
You know, Superman's girlfriend. She always wanted to be the center of his universe, but eventually she realized being with him meant having to share him.
And did she?
It was hard for her at first, but then she realized that it was its destiny to help people.